masterful John Jones, the Manhunter from Mars, his world, and the vile menagerie of villains he must confront. Death World. Life after Death World.
Alarming lack of biscuits.
Inert river inlets, atrophied planet veins, nerve systems of genocide's blood tears that can flow again.
Bittersweet paucity of bourbon creams, chocolate chip cookies.
Ventricles of
Pretentious talking. Look, just say what you want to do.
I want to make it live again, and so very badly, and I don't know how to do that without killing people.
You are torn between two worlds. Heaven damnation, hero murderer, savior weapon, macaroon snickerdoodles. You don't know which cookie to choose from the tasty but bad for you assortment bag.
Yes, I hope Mold will know what to do.
I hope you're right. DC Comics presents Martian Manhunter number 5, Heart/Head. Writer Rob Williams. Layouts Eddy Barrows. Guest pencils Diogenes Neves. Guest inks Mark Deering. Color by Gabe Altebe. Letters by Tom Napolitano. Cover by Eric Canetta. Group editor Brian Cunningham. Associate editor Harvey Richards. Editor Andy Corey. Martian Manhunter created by Joseph Samachson and Joe Cerda.
An older Caucasian man watches from the beach, wearing a domino mask, a picnic blanket wrapped around his neck, long-sleeve denim shirt, khakis, tennis shoes, hands wrapped with some kind of gauze. He appears to look past Earth's atmosphere, seeing the Martian moon of Phobos, anthropomorphized into some sort of eel piranha thing, flying towards the Earth. In Washington, D.C., Daryl Wessel carries the upper portion of Mr. Biscuits in an enormous military-style duffel bag.
No, I think you're right. You know, Mold will probably know what to do, and everything will be just peachy from this juncture onwards. Then again, my opinion may be slightly suspect, given that I'm highly confused and currently being carried in two separate bags.
Mr. Biscuit's lower portion was in a similar duffel bag, tied to the back of Creepy Leo's chair.
Why do you think I am creepy, Alicia?
Oh, please. I can smell the evil plan coming off of you.
Using telepathy, our varied Martian Manhunter proxies managed to get through airport security and fake passports. Mr. Biscuits doesn't handle going through the x-ray machine and the baggage carousel very well, but ultimately he warms to the experience. Creepy Leo continues to push all the Martian Manhunter identities to all meet up in one place to fight back against the white Martian invasion, but Mr. Biscuits desperately needs to find a bathroom to bring himself together. A line of people forms outside the men's room as Biscuits noisily, painfully, and quite likely with a lot of rude sounds, pulls himself together. It's a comedy beat, y'all. The Pearl wakes up on a beach in Ghana, West Africa, having been rescued by the DCU Aquaman, whom she promptly kisses. Aquaman's own telepathy had allowed him to sense that the Pearl was an aspect of John Jones. Aquaman is not at all comfortable with kissing this female aspect of said hero. This is the same beach where the older gentleman, Mold, had been watching and waiting for their arrival. Mold thanks Aquaman for providing assistance to the Pearl, but then dismisses him, allowing that at some later date he may need the Justice League, but not quite at the moment. The Pearl had apologized for the unsolicited kiss, but continued to awkwardly flirt with Aquaman until his departure. Despite his makeshift superhero garb, Mold had driven to the beach in a Jeep, and it was available to him and the Pearl to move on to their next location on Ghana. Back to the airport in Washington, D.C., Alicia watches the TV of various terrors that are being inflicted upon the world by the white Martians in disguise. The restored Mr. Biscuits arrives to thank Alicia for all the help that she's given him, present her with a bag full of biscuits, but also to tell her goodbye, which she's not very happy to hear, quite tearfully in fact.
You helped me, Alicia. You helped me remember who I was. But where we're going is so very dangerous. We will almost certainly all be killed. And I want to protect my best friend so we can have so much fun together if I return. I'll be honest. I still don't know if I am good or bad, Alicia, but I do know that I want to protect you because you're special, and so I'm going to try to stop them. You are not unwanted. You are worth fighting for.
Alicia hugs Mr. Biscuits and then watches his plane take off. Alicia munches on a donut cookie thing.
And there he goes. Stupid old stick insect. Yeah, you'd better come back. Good biscuits.
A group of stereotypical men in black show up, touching Alicia's shoulder and asking her to come with them. Alicia throws the bag of biscuits at them, and then makes a break for it. The men in black begin to shapeshift, white Martians that they are, but no one in the airport is the wiser, as their telepathy allows them to conceal their activities. Only Alicia can see that these are the white Martians that constitute the Martian Man-Eater.
Why can't any of you see it? There's a monster and you can't even see it.
As the incredibly tall Mr. Biscuits folds himself up tightly in the airplane seat, Daryl Wessel asks why they didn't use their telepathy to get first-class seats.
Mr. Biscuits prefers the movie choice in coach. There is 83.39% more chance of seeing an Adam Sandler film.
Daryl notices that Leo is crying and asks why.
It is about to happen, finally.
In Ghana, Mold parks the Jeep and walks the Pearl up to an enormous pit.
According to the local Ashani people, the souls of the dead come here to bid farewell to their god, Twee. It's an impact crater, of course, and it's over 1 million years old, and it was made by something very large that came from Mars. John Jones split himself into numerous identities out across the globe, partly to experience Earth and humanity through many cultures, and partly to protect humanity. You see, many Johns would be hard for them to find. Phobos is in position. I suggest you put these on. I'm John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, and so are you.
The future's so bright, I gotta wear shades.
Phobos opens its fanged maw and begins shooting a red energy beam through the skies of Earth and resting as a perpetual beam within the impact crater.
Mold, I can see... Oh no, I can see something inside it. Shapes, not human shapes. Oh God, I think I know what this is.
A world for a world. Only one planet can sustain life in this system. Ancient Martian blood magic stated this to be so. For Earth to live, a very long time ago, Mars had to die, and now they're reversing that. This is your home, my home. It is Mars, the living, breathing Mars. And this is the day that comes back.
Mold 2 is crying, as taloned inhuman hands seem to reach out from the beam, and the Pearl knew fear. So, okay, we're up to Martian Manhunter number 5. It has another lousy cover by Eric Canetta. This one is less awful than the other ones. At least there was an attempt at a colored background of swirls, nothing definite. Maybe it's smoke, maybe it's atmosphere. Don't know if the coloring's digital or not. I assume so. The cover images of Mold, a character we hadn't seen before, and half his body is taken up by some other twisty Martian thing that looks like something out of a video game. Once again, I'll beat the drum that the clearly physically painted Dan Panosian cover, which is still featured on the DC Comics website as the official solicited cover for this issue, is vastly superior to the Canetta. It features Mr. Biscuits sitting on an airplane seat reading a newspaper, surrounded by rows and rows of white Martians, recalling the Gremlins from the Joe Dante classic. I wish that were the cover I was looking at all this month as this book sat waiting for me to do a commentary track on it. But no, I'm looking at this wretched crud by Eric Canetta instead. The best I can say about it is that it's not as lousy as the other covers that he's done on this book that I didn't want to look at either. But hey, let's move on to the underwhelming interiors. One interesting art choice was on the opening page, you see the craggy surface of a dead Mars that as you pull back is revealed to actually be wrinkles within the face of Mold. But by the time you get to that second page, it's really obvious that that pretty Eddy Barrows art isn't going to be found in this issue. Diogenes Nieves' art on Demon Knights is one of the best aspects of that book, but it looks like this one was a rush job. It's bigger and more cartoony. The way the characters physically interact with the space isn't very convincing. It kind of looks like maybe Barrows had put a little bit more emphasis on Mr. Biscuits and Alicia, or maybe those characters were just prioritized by Nieves. They still look good. Most of the other characters, not so much, especially the Pearl, who I thought Barrows did a great job illustrating, but here she's just not working. I read a lot of people online seem to like this issue the best of the bunch. It did have more attempts at overt humor. I personally didn't find the humor funny at all. It really felt like the book was spinning its wheels. I think that this was being used basically to get everybody in the same place and to stall for the big twist in the 6th issue. I'm over it. I really, at this point, hate these characters. Don't see the point of their existence. I'm tired of this book. It's one of the reasons why this review is very late. I was actually very angry at issues 5 and 6 at one point in time. I've managed to get over that. I don't think anybody really needed to hear that. I think enough of that got through when I was talking about the 4th issue. I just told you what happened in it. Read it, don't read it. I don't really care. As for the sales in the book, it dropped to 123 in the North American rankings, down from 114. Sales were 18,416, down 1,322 copies, which was less than a 50% drop compared to the previous issue. This is versus Justice League Unlimited, which dropped almost 1,300 copies as well. Sinestro, which actually gained 1,100 copies. Catwoman dropped 1,300 copies between months. Constantine, 1,550. Red Hood Arsenal dropped 1,100. Black Canary number 4 dropped 1,450. So whatever boost Pia Guerra gave it on 1 month, she lost in her following month on the book. Justice League 3001 dropped 1,200 copies. Dr. Fate dropped 1,700 copies. So as you can see, the drop from issue to issue on Martian Manhunter has a parity with most of the other books in its grouping. But I'd like to shift over to a book that's slightly funnier, at least. All-Star Section 8. This was a title that did well going out the gate as part of the DCU promotion. It sold 31,099 copies of the first issue, but it already dropped by nearly half that at 16,695 the second issue. And then for the issue we're going to talk, number 3, it was down to 13,032. It continued this nasty trajectory up through at least issue 5, which only sold 9,787 copies. Once you drop below that 10,000 barrier, it's really not worth going into just how poor the sales are. It's a 6-issue miniseries anyway, so it just goes to show the difference between the devoted readers who were going to pick up the book based on its ties to Hitman versus the speculation that I suppose the DCU engendered in some retailers. But given the huge difference in sales, I'm sure there's a lot of unsold copies of number 1 floating around out there. For those who don't know, Section 8 was created by Garth Ennis and John McCrea for their title Hitman, which was itself a spinoff of The Demon. Section 8 barely qualifies as a superhero team. They're really a bunch of misfits in some sad corner of, I believe, Gotham City, who play at being superheroes, but they're mostly just losers and deviants. For instance, the issue starts with one of the team members, Bueno Excelente, who runs around in a trench coat, Speedo, thigh-high vinyl boots, and nothing else, being confronted in the bathroom of Noonan's bar after attempting to have intimate relations with a mass of sentient, ambulatory internal organs, which constituted the team member known only as Guts. But apparently Guts had a suitor already inside her, Sir Percival Orifice, Tape of the Worm. In other words, this is a giant, sentient, conversational tapeworm who is in love with Guts and proposes a duel against Bueno Excelente for the love of these bowels. Meanwhile, Section 8 ideally would have 8 members, and throughout the miniseries, solicit various members of the iconic DC Justice League to join their group instead. The Martian Manhunter was the first of these heroes to actually say,
"Of course I will join Section 8. I consider it an honor and a privilege. For who could know your lonely ways better than I, John Jones, the Martian Manhunter? It is the life of the outcast, the outsider, the lost soul who sees not another like him in all the world, whose own world is gone for all time, making him an orphan of this human planet. There must be a place for the disdained and the discarded, the sad debris of life."
New team member, the Grappler, is very excited that a real superhero is going to join the team, while fellow Section 8 member Power Tool can't get over this smell that keeps wafting into his nose, probably from the bathroom battle between Bueno Excelente and Sir Percival Orifice. Meanwhile, the team leader, Six Pack, who's basically Barney from The Simpsons, to the best of my recollection has no superpowers. He's just such a massive alcoholic that he has little fear and feels no pain. He wants to know how Martian Manhunter heard of the group.
"Word of your return has traveled far, Six-Pack. Heroes everywhere have heard the news."
We're treated to a partial double-page spread where a collection of DC heroes are on what appears to be a JLA satellite or a watchtower, arguing amongst themselves over who's going to get stuck dealing with Section 8 in this miniseries. Hawkman refers to what I believe was a Lobo appearance in a previous Hitman special and how that damaged Lobo's character. Hal Jordan tells Firestorm how his predecessor Kyle Rayner had to go into therapy after his appearance in the issue of Hitman. The Flash tries to have Aquaman thrown under the bus in his place. John Constantine is huddled with Justice League Dark, speaking in the worst, most incomprehensible form of Cockney. The Spectre and Zoriel appear to have God wagging his finger at them. The implication being that it was John Jones who was willing to take the bullet in this particular instance, although over the course of the 6 issues, most of the Magnificent Seven Justice League put in an appearance in their own spotlight issues. They're all talking about us? Holy already have the big boys interested?
"I came as soon as I heard.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? Someone really A-list?
I'm at your service."
Like maybe if someone like The bartender leans into Six-Pack's ear and begins whispering. Finally, Six-Pack has a clue. Let's hear it for the greatest superhero of all time, John Jones. Bator drinks are on me.
I've been Bator.
Attaboy. Now again, for people that didn't follow the Demon or Hitman series, Bator, also known as Master Bator, is a demon from hell who here is depicted with purplish skin. I'm not sure if that was always the case. He has, I think, 4 arms, and he doesn't have a face, just like this big maw with jangly teeth floating around in it and a long snake tongue. John Jones asks,
Are you by any chance some Terran aspect of Bator, the ancient Martian god of the howling void?
Nine.
Here you go, boys.
Because certain ancient cavern pictograms left behind by the sacred First Ones depict a great-toothed maw atop a cowled, misshapen figure, long limbs thrashing, preaching potent lunacy to a throng of damned gingers in the fabled chasm of Phobos.
I have ein Gottschwein.
So that definitely isn't you then.
Look, I am Bator, for fuck's sake.
Eventually, Six-Pack has to excuse himself to step outside and throw up. John Jones asks if he's unwell. Matter of fact, I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you alone, like one super guy to another. Know what I mean? I've been having hero doubts. I don't know what it is. I got these voices in my head. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the only way I know to say it. It's like there's something else. There's somewhere else talking to me from far away. They say I'm wasting my life, that the whole hero thing's just dumb. It ain't even real. They say it's the same adventures, the same stories, same endings, over and over again forever.
And do you know who those voices belong to?
No, I got no idea. It happens real sudden. Like I'm nowhere that's really anywhere. And I hear them talking to me, and I think I'm going crazy. And then I'm back here like nothing ever happened. What does that mean?
Six-Pack. Those doubts you speak of, they assail us all.
Yeah?
My friend, they are the bane of every superhero. Ours is a hard and lonely path. Those not called upon to walk it can be cruel. Dinky they shout. Or big green or go back to Mars, you caped in who look like a bag in that ass outfit. All you do is fight like yourselves to maintain the status quo. You never make any real difference to anything.
Jeez, dude, I get the idea.
Small wonder that we sometimes question why we chose this path, or even leave it altogether.
So what the hell do I do?
Why, find some action, Six-Pack. You have your Section 8 now, do you not? A full complement of heroes? Then seek out the one thing that defines us, that gives our lives the meaning we crave. Take us into action. After all, there's a whole universe of villains out there, and their evil schemes aren't going to thwart themselves.
Six-Pack sees a vision of Section 8 taking on some of DC's most visible supervillains and royally kicking their tuchus. This fires Six-Pack up, but unfortunately, John Jones has to go back into the bar.
I feel a great movement approaching.
The sign on the bathroom reads out of order, but John Jones seems to question its validity, using his deductive skills to determine that it is worth taking a peek inside. What he sees drives him a little mad.
Slide, grind, poke, lubricate, fondle, envelop, interlock, penetrate, cup, inappropriately touch, invade, intrude, encompass.
You see Sir Percival Orifice, Tape of the Worm, and allowed Bueno Excelente his weapon of choice in their duel, and Excelente only has one true weapon, which was used on Sir Percival in ways that, well, drove the Martian Manhunter to fly not only out of the bathroom, out of the bar, out of town, apparently off the earth, screaming, and so Section 8 had lost another member. Garth Ennis has a well-known contempt for superheroes, so giving him a superhero-themed miniseries meant that, of course, we were going to end up in a place like this. The story's okay. The humor is obviously intended to be sophomoric and gross out. Revisiting the story, I actually think that probably Martian Manhunter number 5 is funnier than this. But oddly enough, the book without Martian Manhunter's name on the cover features a hell of a lot more appearances by the actual Martian Manhunter John Jones. And the characterization is truer than in his own book. One of the things I like about the character, I've often called him the patron saint of loser superheroes. The way that his alienness manifests itself most obviously is that he fails to see a pecking order. He fails to see a hierarchy of superheroes. He doesn't understand that he's one of the upper tier heroes in terms of power and in terms of the importance of his role in the DC universe. But also, of course, he's not the most popular superhero in real life. And so he has a tendency to land on teams that realistically should be beneath a founding member of the Justice League. But again, because his sales don't match his status, he turns up on your task forces and your Detroit-based teams and Stormwatch. So it makes sense that he would turn up in Section 8, even briefly. Rich Johnson actually had a cute bit about this on his Bleeding Cool website. But it's true. John Jones will pretty much join any team. He was part of the Justice Experience. And I like that he doesn't see this is beneath him. He doesn't have that type of ego. He's not like us. He's not petty in that way. He goes where he can do good. He goes where he can serve up justice. He's not concerned about whether his teammates are disgusting unless they're doing something that's outright criminal or inflicts harm to something besides sentient tapeworms and such. While Garth Ennis was attempting to lampoon the comic book voice of Martian Manhunter, he actually does a pretty decent job of affecting it. It provides some of the best humor as you're placing his haughty tones against the sad wretches that make up Section 8. Also, reading this story in the same month that featured the worst art so far in the Martian Manhunter series, I really enjoyed John McCrea's artwork in this issue. McCrea's an artist that I like very much on the correct projects. I thought he was excellent on The Demon. He was the best Demon artist possibly ever. Certainly, in my mind, the best Demon artist that's not named Jack Kirby, the creator of that character, Etrigan. And as a co-creator of the Hitman series, he was, of course, perfect for the types of stories that was being told there. But when Garth Ennis went through that period of being the new belle at the ball and people failed to recognize how much he hated heroes and offered him projects involving characters like Spider-Man, McCrea would often tag along and then do unfortunate renditions of superheroes that he was no more adept at than Garth Ennis was at writing them. And also he tends to work on books with Ennis that play to their going for broad, gross-out humor, books like Dick's, that I don't have a personal interest in at all. But I have noticed in recent years, possibly because he hasn't been working as much, John McCrea seems to be putting a lot more effort into each individual page of art. I've always liked the basis of his style. I've always liked his use of shadow. And as I believe I may have mentioned here or elsewhere at one point in time, I had a comic shop and I actually built a life-size standee to promote Hitman when it was coming out because I knew how much I enjoyed the creative team and the character in the Demon series before it ended. And so I actually had to recreate by hand with Sharpies John McCrea's cover image of the Hitman character. So I got a real sense of how unique his style is, and I really enjoyed working on that little project. But he's light years from that now. He has techniques that I've never seen anywhere else. I mean, he has an obvious influence that comes from satirical artists. Being an American, I see the influence of American artists like Jack Davis in his work. I'm sure there's a bunch of British guys who I'm not as familiar with since I'm not into that scene that also influenced him. But he looks like nothing else out there. I love this technique he has. He'll do those sort of lines like the image artist did where you just have a series of quick slashing marks. But then he'll go back and he'll make him these big chunky Twix looking things, or he'll do feathering, but then he'll go back and he'll add a little black squiggly thing, sort of like what Rob Liefeld used to do, his little semen. But he blacks them in and he uses them to where they accentuate the anatomy correctly. Because the basics of his style are still cartoonish, this heavy detailing that he's added doesn't really affect the flow of the story. Your eye is still going from panel to panel at a correct rate, but you still absorb a lot of that extra effort in the rendering. His faces are more realistic now, especially in close-up. He has deepened shadow and these great wrinkles, and having read the book and then going back and looking at it, I just love staring at these panels. His art is like nothing else I've ever seen before, and I just love this technique. It's so foreign from anything else I've seen from any other artists. And you know, it's funny, it's surprisingly good at rendering the New 52 costumes. I wish the story was anywhere near as funny as Garth Ennis probably thinks it is, but it doesn't matter because I'm too busy staring at McCrea's artwork and enjoying that.
Your ego betrays you. Will you not listen to reason? This won't end well for you.
Andrew's busy this month. He tweeted out a picture of Super Friends rubbery toy versions of the New 52 Martian Manhunter and Plastic Man in a 2-pack that's exclusive to Target. You can see that picture on the blog. Always wanted to pick that one up. Never found it in the wild, though. Max Romero noted, just hanging out, talking about shape-shifting and whatnot. Max has a Plastic Man blog or a Tumblr at this point, I'm not sure. He's also turned up on the Fire and Water podcast talking Plastic Man, and he should be in an upcoming episode of the Secret Origins podcast. And he also promoted a crossover between the Idlehead blog and his Supergirl comic box commentary blog back in 2010, which addressed Supergirl's appearance in Adventure Comics number 450 from back in the 70s. Martin Gray offered his critique of the issue, saying it was an unsubtle yet touching tale, made him think about Mr. Biscuits. You can check that out on his Too Dangerous for a Girl blog. And Jacob Edwards tweeted out an image of Jim from his appearance on the Supergirl television show. This means something. We received retweets and favorites from the 108th Sage, Ange, Charlton Hero, Comic Reflections, Count Druncula, Danilo Santiago, Darren and Ruth Sutherland, Dr. G Nerdologist, Eternal Rage, Fantastiverse, Firestorm Fan, Lynn Walker, Joseph Crawford, Cord Industries, Kyle Pettit, Luke Dobwalker, Martin Gray, Mentors Camper, Odyssey Unleashed Podcast, Oscar Blue Devil, Scott Bachman, Synodalia Scarecrow, and Trekker Talk Podcast, as well as retweets from Alan Middleton, DCU Movie Page, Guano Man, Keith G. Baker, Mark Sweeney, Ryan C. at Trash Film Guru, and Siskoid, and favorites from Comic Reflections, David Golding Artist, Ed Moore at Any Comic Fan, Ed Moore at Teal Productions, Eli Ilperin, Inigo Montoya, Jacob Edwards, Longbox Graveyard, and Randy Caldwell. Comic Reflections included us on Follow Friday. I've been remiss to point out that I've made appearances on 2 relatively recent episodes of the Secret Origins podcast, which has been on hiatus and should be coming back in February. I'll provide links on the page, but we talked about the Atom Villain, the Floronic Man, and the Golden Age superhero Black Condor. And it may have an appearance in the relatively near future as well. Podcast listeners should feel free to leave a comment on one of our blogs, either the Umbrella Rolled Spine podcasts or the specific Idlehead of Diabolu blog. Both are available quite easily through Google searches. You can also shoot me a tweet at Commander Blanks, that's BLANX. Thank you for listening.